Welcome to the Brodart Tell Me More Global Voices webinar. Today we have three authors that will be sharing their stories with you, and they come to us from all around the world, basically. Our moderator, Amanda Hunt, also known as the Next-Gen Librarian, is a Texas middle school librarian, reader and ed tech ambassador, passionate about reading and empowering educators, also has over 72,000 followers on Instagram, and we know her as an influencer. Over to you, Amanda.
Oh, yikes. Don't call me that. Just a middle school librarian over here. So yeah, welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you. And we are going to kick it off with Marzieh Abbas, who is the author of Aarzu All Around, which is a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection. Marzieh's middle grade novel in verse follows a 12-year-old Aarzu Raza, a spirited girl growing up in Pakistan who dreams of playing cricket just like her late father, a national hero. Aarzu navigates gender expectations, family loss, and her sister's illness while finding strength in faith, love, and determination. This heartfelt middle grade debut celebrates resilience, girlhood, and the power of holding on to your dreams. So, welcome, welcome. Marzieh, could you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write Aarzu All Around?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So basically, Aarzu is it's part memoir, and it was inspired by my experiences growing up as one of four sisters in Pakistan. And the sad thing is that I saw a lot of discrimination against girls amongst people around us, and the way people pitied us for not having a brother growing up. And I think the culture plays a very important role and is often masked as religion. But that's something that I wanted to draw attention to. I was also inspired by the story of Maria Pakai Wazir, who is an international professional Pakistani squash player. And the entire transformation of Aarzu to Azlan was inspired by Maria's story, who she actually was, disguised as a boy by her father, who called her Changiz Khan and made her compete against boys to shelter her from, the Taliban invasion of northern Pakistan and to allow her to play and pursue her passion. And so that part of the story was inspired by Maria's true story, and the resolution of the entire novel is actually inspired by the two Khan sisters, Sharmeen and Shaiza Khan, who actually were the pioneers and the first ones to dream of Pakistani girls cricket team. And they also had to put up with a lot. And eventually, instead of playing against ex-players, they decided to play amongst girls against girls, and that's how the Pakistani cricket team was formed in 1993.
I learned so much about cricket in this book because I think we discussed it a little bit yesterday that it's not really like a super well-known sport in the United States. So I'm so excited to have representation in a middle grade book about a sport that our kids can learn about. What do you think that readers are going to connect with the most with Arzu's story?
So surprisingly, they're connecting a lot with cricket. I just had a school visit, a virtual school visit with a school in Virginia, and their teacher was telling me that they went through the whole novel together, and then I came in after they were done reading, and she was telling me how the kids, whenever they have time to play, they will be out in the field, and they have this improv cricket game going on, and somehow all of them, they've all learned the rules of cricket. And I even shared a video with them, and they were so interested. They're like, is this the right way to hold the bat? And, is my bowling action looking good? And I was like blown away because I didn't expect. And while this story was on submission, the entire time, we kept hearing, and it was on submission for 2 whole years before it was acquired. So we kept hearing how cricket is not a popular sport, and maybe we should try and market like the UK or Australia, where it is a more famous sport. And we kept pushing for it, and the kids, we really underestimate kids and what they are interested in. So that's one thing. And then, of course, Aarzu's story is about, perseverance and, pursuing her passions, and really like, against all odds, all the financial constraints, her losing her parents, the patriarchy in the society. She is full of passion and this love for her little sister, whom she's driven to save, and so this whole journey that she goes on to really you know realize her own dreams while dealing with everything that is thrown at her.
I felt so much for for Arzu. Like, I cannot imagine going through that as a 12-year-old and all the things that she was doing. Hardest worker in the world. But I found that I learned a lot. Sorry, it was my school alarm. I found that you were able to institute so much about Pakistani culture, like in every piece of this book, which I love because I feel like we need more books like this on our shelves. So, how did you decide, how much to include? And it wasn't just about like, the religion or any of it. Like it was about it all, right? From cricket to the types of food to family traditions. So how did you feel like that translated, and how our readers like universally are going to connect with that?
Yeah. So the way that I did that was during the writing stage, I actually thought of my setting as a character in itself, right? And my aim from the beginning was that I want to bring readers who might never visit Pakistan in person. I want to give them that experience, that tangible, the sights, the sounds, the feels, all of that. I wanted them to really like come down, feel it all with Arzu, feel her struggles, taste the lassi and the korma and the shahi tukre, and feel the heat and the humidity, and feel that loss and all the emotions that she was dealing with, the grief, the struggles, all of that. So I really wanted to give that tangible experience to our readers, because when a reader is at that level with the character, going through their struggles with them, it's so powerful, and that's how we really create empathy for a diverse character, and that's like the gateway to learning about a new culture. And although there's so many specifics which might be very unique to our readers, there's at the bottom of it, there is this universal the emotions that are relatable for all our readers.
That is so true. And I feel like that kind of helps, like our theme of today's webinar is just that global voice. Do you have anything to add of how like what a global voice means in the context of your storytelling?
Yeah, I feel like the beauty of stories is that they have this ability to transcend boundaries, right? And in the world that we're living in today, unfortunately, there's so much apprehension about what it is to be an immigrant, and what it is to be a person who is not from a certain country or who holds a certain passport, and there's all this baggage that comes with it. And I just feel like when we are with Arzu, I wanted to speak to the universal human experiences, but I wanted to use language and the powerful imagery that I did to really educate people about life in Pakistan, and to narrow that divide, and to bring us all together through empathy, because that's what stories do best.
Oh, best way to wrap up that little Q&A with you. I love that, Marzieh. Thank you so much for sharing about your title, your book that's out in the world now. So next up, we have Veeda Bybee, who is the author of The Invincible List of Lani Lee. Veda's middle grade novel follows 13-year-old Lani, a shy saxophonist traveling to London with her band while her younger brother prepares for open heart surgery back home. Inspired by Chinese folklore and her brother's courage, Lani creates a list of invincible challenges to help her face her fears, one act of bravery at a time. It's a heartfelt story about family resilience and finding strength when life feels steep as Cooper's Hill. That's the tardy bell. Apologies. And then, so um, Veeda, I'm so excited that you're here today. Can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to blend Chinese folklore with like a modern family story and how that legend of the eight invincible brothers helped shape Lani's journey?
Yes, thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here and just hearing, you know, Aarzu's story. I'm so excited about it. I'm an oldest of four girls as well, so there are just so many universal things that can appeal to us, even if the culture is different. And so I grew up with a tale about these invincible brothers. And when I was growing up, there's this picture book, and it was like it wasn't perfect, but I still loved seeing these brothers and their siblings and how they lifted each other up. And as a children's book author, I was thinking of ways I could incorporate that story maybe one day into my own work. And so, you mentioned this book is about a girl who goes to London, and she's using this folktale she grew up with to find her own inner strength. And what happens is that her younger brother Gavin challenges her to do something in his place. He wants to race down this cheese rolling race in England. It's called the Cooper's Hill Cheese Rolling Race. Maybe some of you heard of it. It's amazing. For over like 200 years, the small town in the countryside, they take a wheel of cheese. Now they use like a styrofoam wheel because a roll of cheese would actually be really dangerous. And they will just roll it down the hill, and the first person who runs after the cheese, like first person down the hill, will win the cheese. And I had an experience where, like years ago, I went to this race. Like we were in London at the time for an internship for my husband, and it was really exciting to be there. I had two little kids, and I was thinking, oh, I'm in London, like I feel so cool. And then we were there for a little bit, and I actually felt the exact opposite. I was really lonely, and it was just hard to navigate with kids, and so I was feeling kind of low. And I saw that this race was going on at the same time, so I thought, what if I plan this trip and we can go to the race? And so, I booked the tickets. I looked up how to get there. We went to this to the Cooper's Hill Cheese Rolling Race, and just the walk up to the bottom of the hill is a hike. And so it was something that just gave me so much courage and bravery. And I thought, like, what if I could put that same feeling into a book, into a character for kids? And so, so I'm having Lani do this in the book, but she's like me too. She doesn't naturally have this courage, and she has a lot of fears. And I feel like the stories we grew up with, even if it's in the back of our subconscious, they really do give us this identity of who we are. And so she grew up with this story of these eight invincible brothers who have these great superpowers. So she's going to decide, if I'm going to be fearless, and make this trek and enter this race for my brother, how can I accomplish that? So she decides to take each of their superpowers and kind of make them her own too. And so I feel like you know having the story that I grew up with, and sharing it with kids these days, I think we're just linked to the power of storytelling. And I hope that kids can see that, whether it's their own heritage, or someone, or like a story from someone else, they can have that example for them.
Absolutely. And I love, you talking a little bit about Gavin, and that's going to be, follow up to my next question. But I found it so interesting that both you and Marzieh have like a younger sibling that they're trying to protect and love, that are, sick. And so I felt like the strength from both of the main characters really shine through on the pages, because like look at the lengths that they'll go and how brave they both are. And I think, family is a strong motivator for that. So what do you hope young readers will take away from Lani and Gavin's sibling relationship and the way they support one another?
I love that Marzieh has that sibling story too, and how I'm excited to hear how Donna's story is connected to ours as well. Like, it's it's always interesting to see how we do have similar universal themes. Um, Siblings can be such a strength and a challenge, and I feel like it's good to have that friction, and sometimes we're not going to be able to do things on our own for ourselves. Like so, Lani, I don't think she would have been brave enough to do on her own, but knowing that she's going to race this Cooper's Hill Cheese Rolling race and it'll give her brother Gavin just the power and strength propels her to step and move forward. And I think for kids too, knowing that we have something in us that we can dig deep is like it's really powerful. And oftentimes it's not because we needed it for ourselves, but for other people. And so maybe there are others in their lives that they can be a good example for, or in turn, someone else could be a good example for them too. And so I think the people we grew up with, our siblings, whether they're younger or older, they really do give us opportunity to step outside ourselves and to kind of become something that maybe your younger sibling has always thought you could be too.
That's great. And I loved the focus on the music too. I played saxophone in school band, so I immediately connected to Lonnie in that respect. But what made you choose like music and Lonnie's role in her band as the way she discovers her own confidence in her voice?
Yeah, I also played the alto saxophone. So that was my identity in high school. I was a marching band kid. And I actually named the band director, Mr. Griffith, in this book after my old band director in high school. And he's passed recently, well, a few years ago, and he just made all the difference in my life. He saw something in me, and I wasn't like the best saxophone player, but I felt a part of something. And I think, being a part of an orchestra or a band or something like that, it can really give you this sense of belonging. And I felt that, and I was hoping that Lani could also, even though she was still scared and timid, she had it in her. She could play the solo, even though it was nerve-wracking. And music has this way of just sharing messages that we don't necessarily hear with words, but we can hear through the songs and the lyrics. And I hope that kids can also hear that for themselves too.
Yeah, I think it's so important for all of our students to find their people, I guess, is the way to say. I always tell them, like, you need to find our people. And it takes a lot of forms, but band, I feel like is so it is very universal, right? So a lot of our kids will be able to recognize either themselves or they have a friend that's in band. So I loved having that as such a big role. It's going to get a lot of kids checking it out because of that. So I appreciate you including it. Um, what message do you hope readers will carry with them when they finish Lonnie's story?
I hope readers can see that they can be brave, and it's really okay not to be brave at first, and it may take some steps along the way, but that bravery, whether it's, doing something very big like running in a cheese rolling race, or just stepping up and playing a solo in your band concert, or talking to someone you don't know before, you can do it. But not only that, but you're not alone. Like you have people around you that can help and support you. Lani has friends in her book. She has, a family. And sometimes we can feel like we're really alone in the world, but we really are surrounded by the others who want to uplift us and who are there for us.
I love that. That is such a great way to end it. Y'all are just killing it on the last question. It's like these, I need to just like write some of these things down. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Veeda, for sharing about your story. And finally, we're joined by Donna Barba Higuera,
Well
author of,
done.
I know, Texas, right? I felt like this is what I did not
Exactly.
have to worry about. She is the author of Xolo. Congratulations yesterday on your release. That's so
Thank you.
exciting. This book reimagines the Aztec myth of Xolotl. It's the dog-headed god of lightning, death, and misfortune, and his role in bringing humanity back to Earth. Told with humor, heart, and mythic depth, this stunning tale explores courage, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be man's best friend. It's a powerful story of light and darkness and the quiet heroes that keep our world turning. So, thank you so much for being here. And the first thing I'm going to do is, what was your path to creation for this title? Because I've read everything you've written before, and I found that this was a little bit of a shift. So if you could share a little bit about, how it came to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a departure from what most of a lot of my story ideas come from writing prompts or something I hear on the news or what have you. And I have always been a huge mythology and folklore nerd my entire life. And so I don't even remember. Somebody asked me when I read or knew about Xolotl or Xolot, and I don't remember. I knew the story of his twin brother, Quetzalcoatl, who is the feathered serpent, and everybody kind of knows his tale and how he escorts the sun through the sky. But he has this twin brother, the god of monstrosities, who escorts the sun through the underworld. And nobody really knows about Xolotl. And so in the spirit of maybe Wicked, I decided to do a reimagining. And I wanted to be really cautious because a lot of the mythology and the Aztec mythology is sacred. And so you want to make sure that you're clarifying this is my reimagining. But the real story was basically that Earth had ended, humanity was gone, and the gods had decided that they had to get Earth spinning again. That was how they were going to bring humans back, bring the Earth back. And so to do that, they had to sacrifice themselves by jumping into a volcano. And it was kind of a symbolic sacrifice. They're gods, they're going to come back. But Xolo was too timid and too afraid, so he didn't do it. And so, and that's really all there was. There wasn't a lot about him, but the gods went searching for him, and he was a bit of a shapeshifter. And I just decided, well, what if that's not what really happened? What if there was this alternate tale about who he really was? And so, but the way the story actually came about was in a strange way. So during the pandemic, my husband and I were home with one daughter who was still in high school, and she was a band nerd. She's still dating her boyfriend from sixth grade band, and they just graduated college and are starting their life together. So you can meet your life partner in band also. So, so but we were trying to keep her occupied. It was a really hard time for young people, and she was a bit of a rock hound. She loved digging rocks, but we're like, you know what? If she's going to do this, let's go make it real. She's got to know where the rocks actually come from. So we went to the middle of nowhere in this town called Denio, Nevada, to the Royal Peacock Opal Mine. And we were literally, I promise you, the story will come together. So we're digging on the side of this mountain, and there was no one there. There was a family who ran this small RV park, and we had rented a trailer so we could, kind of keep our distance. We took our dog Filson with us, who was an older dog, and we just camped and we went digging. And the owner of the park came up to us and said, "Hey, there's a really bad lightning storm coming in. You have to get out of here." And so we did. We packed up all our gear and we went back to the trailer and did what all great explorers do. We decided to take a nap. And so Filson was already nervous. And so I put him, but he didn't sleep on the bed. So I put him at my feet. And every time there was like a loud boom that would wake me up from the thunder, I would look down and he was like slowly creeping up the bed until when we woke up from the nap, he was right in my neck. And actually, that is Filson up there on the fireplace. And he looks quite regal there, but he was not a regal dog. I mean, he looked brave, but he was a scaredy cat dog. And it made me think of the story of Xolotl and how he was the god of lightning, and he appeared strong on the outside, but what if he had these very human-like characteristics, and what if he had fears? Bringing back to the sibling dynamic, which Veeda was talking about, what if he had a complicated relationship with his twin brother? We don't always have sibling dynamics that build each other up. And he had a relationship with his brother where he kind of, chased after him for approval and didn't get that. And so this story blossomed into a tale also of the origin of dogs and the relationship of dogs and humans. And it's absolutely a love story to dogs, but also the commonalities of dogs and humans, and how we both just dogs love us unconditionally and we love them back. So it's like, and humans have the same thing. The desire to love and be loved is such a core thing that humans and dogs share. And I've had cats who I've really loved, but they didn't quite love me back the same way that I loved them. So it was definitely a story about those relationships. But when I'm writing it from the perspective of a god, he's different than the other gods, and he loves and he yearns for things, and he discovers who he is. And a lot of it is about, things that kids who are at this age reading are probably going through. And if you haven't actually held a physical copy of this book, I handed it to a bookseller and I said, oh, it's really hefty. And they go, oh, it's like deep themes, like the last Quintessa. I'm like, no, it's literally heavy because it's fully illustrated. So I don't think they quite know what to call it. It's an illustrated novel, I would say, but it kind of has the feel of a graphic novel, but not quite the same format. But kids are just very much drawn to the illustration. And I think that the story of this dog who's yearning for relationships and love is something kids are also going to relate to. But they're going to love the imagery and the illustrations that were created by Mariana Ruiz Johnson, she actually went to the Museo de Mexico Antropológica and studied the reliefs and stone carvings to create the illustrations.
Oh my gosh, that just took my next question because I wanted to give Mariana a shout out because I only got to see like the PDF version. I don't have like my physical copy yet that we already ordered for the library. But I'm so glad that you're showing that because I could tell just in that version how beautiful the illustrations were. And I was going to ask, like, did y'all have conversations, back and forth of like what you wanted this to be? Because like, you're right, you did say is it an illustrated novel? It's not really a graphic novel. It's kind
Yeah.
of unique into its own. So,
Well, it
how did that
started
come
out as
about?
a picture book. It was just imagery of a scaredy cat dog in a lightning storm, and then you would turn the page and you would see the story of Xolo, the mythology. So it kind of started out with just this picture book, which was, it's 32 pages or 16 spreads. And so it was very simplistic, and it just evolved into different. At one point, I think I wrote it as a reluctant superhero dog book. That didn't work. And so a lot of times we don't talk about the revision process, but this book went through a ton of revision and a lot of different lives until it ended up where it did.
Ah, yeah, I love that. Because I feel like I read the author's note and it was about Filson and all your other, pets that you included. And so I know that like he obviously, influenced the story. But you've talked a little bit about loyalty and companionship and courage, but I also feel like Charlotte was considered potentially like a monster. How do you feel about giving him that gray area of like a misunderstood hero?
I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and if you know anything about Doctor Who, they end up on planets where you'll have the most monstrous creatures, and they're the good guys. And so I love reimagining things like perceptions of what we think something is and what the reality is. And so I wanted to give him this for us to go, okay, people are complicated, and sometimes the more revered and beautiful things on the outside, especially kids now looking at social media, like all the images that they're bombarded with, sometimes, parsing that and seeing what the reality is, who the good guys are, and like taking a step back, take a breath, and talk to people, like get to know people. Don't just look at, what you see on the outside. Don't look at the images that you see, and don't try to compete with that. Like that's be who you are. There's a quote here that it said, "You are who you really are when no one is watching." And I did not realize this. They go, "Oh, it sounds like a John Wooden quote." And my dad was a high school football and baseball coach and used to play John Wooden records. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if that embedded in my subconscious and then found its way. And if you don't know who John Wooden was, he was a basketball coach for like the greats. He was at UCLA, right? I think UCLA. And just he was just a very inspirational person. But I think that it's important for kids to know too that like, you don't have to compete with others, and we can take, somebody who looks like a monster on the outside and he's beautiful on the inside. And a lot of times it, we get caught up in the world and we forget to look at who people really are.
That is such a great way to end that as well. I feel like it's so true about stereotypes and just like villainizing people and actually having those conversations and getting to know them better. So I'm so excited to talk to all of you now. Elenita, do we have time for some questions for everyone?
Yes, we don't have any from the audience, so if you have some, that would be.
Okay. Absolutely. All of your books draw from like personal or cultural roots. How do you decide which parts of your own background that you're going to weave into your storytelling? Because I feel like all of our experiences are different, and obviously, writing for middle grade is that, like it's a little older than elementary, but they're not quite young adults yet. What do you kind of decide to bring in from your own world into your writing? Donna, do you want to start?
Sure. This book is a bit of a departure because it's Aztec mythology, and it's not really culturally what I grew up with. I didn't grow up in a mythological world, but I love it. But a lot of my work does involve, my cultural background. But I can trace my roots back to that far, where they're the indigenous roots. I mean, it might be 12 or 13 generations, but it's there. And so I have this fascination or wonder about it. And my husband's also a writer, and we talk a lot about how most of our friends who are writers and people who create stories, we haven't lost our ability to wonder. So even if it's not something specifically about our own culture, we wonder about a lot of things. But for myself, when I'm writing certain characters, I absolutely have family members in my mind and people who I've grown up with certain phrases culturally and things, and those find their way into my work. I don't think you can help it. It's kind of like what Marzieh was talking about, like just, it's this, or actually you were talking about the all-encompassing Pakistani culture. It's not just one little piece of that. It's everything. It's all of who you are. And so, and especially being, growing up in the United States, there's American culture too, and it's complicated when you're mixing different cultures, and a lot of times people try to tell you you're one thing or you're another, and you're the only one who knows who you are. And if you don't write from a place that's sincere and from your own background, it's kids can sniff it out immediately. So it's I don't think we can help it. I think probably Veeda and Marzieh are going to say the same thing. You can't help but those things finding their way into your work.
Yeah. Marzieh, do you want to add anything to that?
I completely agree. I think it seeps in, and when I'm writing an initial draft, I'm not thinking about how is this going to read to someone who's not familiar with the culture. So I basically just write it all. And Pakistani culture is very rich. Also, there's a lot of things that are in the Pakistani culture which are from pre-partition days. So their belief systems, which were rooted in Hinduism, which and there's this overlap of like religion and culture. And I actually also call it out in the book because there's a poem titled "Culture is the Culprit," and how these people who are against girls doing, having the freedom that boys have, they make it seem like it's Islam that curtails it, whereas it isn't Islam. It is the culture that we have, been brought up with that is so closely entwined now that it's difficult to decipher what comes from religion and what comes from the culture itself. And so I have a lot of the resolution also revolves around Aarzu drawing strength from these really strong Islamic personalities, and the way they were treated, like the Prophet's daughter and how he treated his daughter, right? So there's a lot of that's one thing that I wanted to really highlight because there aren't many conversations around what is the real Islam or how it's depicted to be and how it's understood. So yeah, but I agree, it's they all seep in, and we let them seep in, I think, and then you have to like cut out stuff. There's so many darlings that you have to remove because you want the story to just these things that are going to be most like make the story most cohesive and move it forward, and then you just keep those and save some parts for other stories.
So true. Veeda, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I definitely my heritage, my culture is always on my mind because it's like who I am, and I feel like every single person has roots somewhere too. So the story of the eight Invincible brothers, when I was reimagining it, so this story is in the book, The Invincible of Lani Lee. I have this book she grew up with. It's woven into the novel, and so you also get this story of these brothers. And I was deliberate in making them. I really wanted the illustrations to be modern and to be something that's recognizable for kids these days. So the illustrator, his name was Juan Pham. I asked him we're not doing like traditional hairstyles. Like I wanted them to look like a K-pop band, pretty much. Because there's this. And I was writing this, a couple of years ago, so it's been really fun to have it come out now with like the explosion of K-pop Demon Hunters. When I've talked about it in schools, like all the kids know this movie, and it's been really fun to like have this parallel, like, oh, are you guys fans of K-pop bands? And I go, yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters. And I said, well, these brothers are just like that, where they all have like a superpower. And just like a K-pop band, they all have like something they're really good at. Like one's a rapper, one's really good at melodies. These brothers have the same thing, and they hold everyone together. They work together really closely. So it's been really neat to have. We're living in this time where things are more accessible, and we can be influenced by other cultures and take inspiration from them. So I'm grateful to have the book come out now where kids recognize like, oh, K-pop. There's Asians and Asian Americans. They're out there, and I'm just grateful to be a part of that too.
Yeah, I think I'm so excited for this, big surge of, because I have so many kids over the years that are like BTS, like they have loved, but it's been a smaller group and now it's getting bigger and bigger. And so it's just amazing to see kids, embracing other cultures that way, and bringing it into entertainment as well. Um, so I feel like, writing for middle grade readers, it usually has y'all tackling the big emotions, okay? And that can be, I'm sure, very daunting. So what do you find most rewarding or challenging for writing for this particular age group? Anybody can go on this one.
I will just say, like, I don't think I ever left middle school mentally. And so every time I've tried to, like, people go, you should write YA, when I'm like, oh, I don't think I got that far. So, and I think that a lot of the middle school and upper, because I write upper middle grade as well, it kind of borders on that. There's so much insecurity, and we're big mistake factories at that age. Like I think all of middle school and, early high school is a big mistake factory and learning who you are and trying to figure out family dynamics and friends. And there are huge emotions with that. And I have always been a kid. I'm not a kid. I got to remind myself, not a kid anymore, I have felt everything really deeply. So when I'm writing, I do a lot of crying and a lot of laughing. And so I have to remember, okay, what am I writing today? Should I be writing this in public or should I stay home? And, in this book in particular, I think because of the family dynamics and how he's feeling, I think a lot of we finish writing our books and then we go, wow, I was going through something. Like you realize a lot of it is autobiographical. And then of course, if I try to read the author's note out loud, I'm ugly crying. I can't, I've read it 100 times by myself in public. I cry every time and it's always embarrassing. But um, I think that kids right at that age are just at the age before they start stifling their emotions, and it makes me sad. So when I do a lot of school visits, it's right at like fifth, sixth, a little bit of seventh grade, then they start to shift a little bit and like worrying about what others are thinking of them. And I like being able to write with your heart on your sleeve. And so um, that's why I write for this age group, but I think kids need these books where they can still feel those emotions and go, oh, okay, well, this character's feeling it. I can still feel these things too.
Yes, I have a student right on the other side of this wall that I will be sharing that part of the interview with because I just want to shake her sometimes and be like, stop worrying about, all of the things, the insecurities, because she's just so amazing, as all of our kids are. So I appreciate you saying that and making a point to discuss it in school visits. Vita?
Yeah, I've been on a lot of school visits recently with this book just coming out. And one thing I do notice that I think a challenge we have now is that a lot of kids just aren't readers. And that could be for several, the technology or just COVID. And so I do feel it's been hard for them to get into a book where I also feel like there is so much hope though, because they still are kids, like there's still opportunities. Like every day, they could find the book that gets them to be a reader tomorrow or maybe this afternoon. And just talking with Donna and Marzieh, like I'm so excited because, Donna's book is mythology and it's like illustrated, and illustrations are one of the big indicators to get kids into reading. And Marzieh, she has this cricket, which is a sport, and so many kids are into sports. And so I feel like, we can relate to the kids, even though they may not see it at first. So, I know I really believe that there is a book out there for everybody, and like once they, because I grew up as a reluctant reader, and I found the book, and then it opened up my appreciation for other ones. And so I just feel like if I could have that experience, and like I write books for kids now, and there are kids out there who they can also become readers too.
Marzieh, did you want to add anything to that about um, our writing for middle grade readers, which can be
So
hard?
this is actually my debut middle grade. So yeah, it was very challenging to shift from to believe in myself, and that I could actually hold all these all the threads and all the themes in my in my mind together. So that was challenging. I also really wanted to touch on sensitive topics, and one of them is domestic abuse, which very subtly. So that was another challenge that I wanted to. There are children who are dealing with it and who don't know how to, address it directly, and then that's exactly how Aarzu is, and also like messy friendships, misunderstandings, all of those, things which feel colossal and which are colossal at that stage in life. And I actually, in recent school visits, have seen children are most interested in those big feelings and how they were resolved. And so they wanted to know, like, why didn't she make a direct apology? Like, we know she was so brave to forgive, but did she make a direct apology? And what happens after the book finishes? So they're like so again, I feel like we underestimate how much they can hold in their brains. And then, the way that they even wrote letters later to me about how they've gone through a similar situation, or how they've dealt with, like, challenges with a sibling, or, all the different threads, and you don't know which reader is picking up on which thread and what is striking a chord with them. And so I feel it's so important to bring this, variety of voices and this diversity, and just, write from what you know. And there are kids out there who are, really hungry for this.
You sure don't sound like a debut author. That is so true, to keep all of those things in the forefront of your mind when you're writing too. Or like it comes out naturally just from the story that you're telling. So thank you for those thoughts. Elenita, how are we doing on time?
I think we're done. I think this has gone really, really well, and some wonderful stories, and I love the way you articulate the emotions and thoughts that went into it. I think also the way you're really looking at your audience and watching them and writing for them. I think it's really wonderful. So I'm going to say that we're going to end, and I want to thank, whoops, again, my slides are going the wrong way. I want to thank your publishers for participating with us and for sponsoring the event. And books can be bought at Brodart. And I really, really appreciate your publishers for bringing you on here and allowing you to share your stories with us. So thank you very much.